Dungeon Masters of Reddit. Who is the single worst player you have ever put up with? What in-game consequences did they suffer, if any? People who don't show up, then cry when they found you all played without them. Yeah, we're not going to put off this scheduled game because of one person. For frick's sake. Our warlock literally made his best friend play his character the week he couldn't come. He was happy with how he was played too. I had a player who kept making dumb technical arguments to justify every little weird stunt he wanted to pull, ran out of arrows and wanted to shoot rocks with his bows, kept arguing that he'd seen someone do it so it totally worked, couldn't make camp in the muddy grimy floor of the cave so he wanted to sleep on the ceiling upside down with his boots off spit climbing. When we pointed out that the blood rushed to his head, he argued that there wasn't a source book that stated that elven biology was affected by gravity that way. So, a goblin ran around the corner and threw its poop at him, he exploded, and we pointed out that there wasn't a source book that stated goblin poop didn't double as volatile explosives when thrown at upside down sleeping elves. Goblins are a force to be reckoned with, from crapping bombs to flying by flapping their ears. One of the people I gamed with in high school was the worst in my group's 20 years of existence. In one game he played the most annoying gnome you can imagine, and he had a charisma 18. So, as he put it, you have to like me, number. Not when you act like that, people don't. No matter how many times you insist we like your character. That character got crushed by a spiked wheel he was messing with and we were all happy to see him go. He also was the worst kind of rules lawyer. He would argue endlessly about minor points, but be wrong the entire time. He tried to insist the escape artist skill could be used to run away from battles, because it could make him escape artistically. I eventually gave up explaining it to him and had his character drown when he failed the die roll escaping from a flooding cave system. Only one time that I'm aware of did a GM actually target him in a totally screw you fashion, and I wasn't running that game. It was a game of werewolf, and he decided to make the worst kind of munchkin character by trying to fast talk the GM into going with the character having multiple personalities, all of which was a different kind of werewolf so he could do anything he wanted. The GM finally got tired of arguing instead of starting the session, so he agreed to let him play his 5 characters in one rules violating super munchkin character. 2 minutes into the game a sniper shot him in the head with a silver bullet and killed him. The worst I ever played with was a guy who cheated. He was a one-upping, me first, min-maxing, rules lawyering, murder hobo. But that I can deal with as a DM. What I can't deal with is cheating. When I caught him and confronted him about it, I probably would have let him keep playing with the group if he just confessed and promised not to do it again, but he tried to blame shifts and obfuscate and all kinds of other things. So I asked him to leave and not come back. I also posted his information on some forums, which I admit may have been a bridge too far, because I didn't want other people to have to play with him. As for in-game consequences, those are for in-game actions. Still starting as a DM, someone joined my game who was a massive anime fan. He joined with a human warlock called Kira. Now I knew nothing about Death Note at the time. To me it was just a human warlock with a name Kira. He played the warlock like an actual warlock, carrying around his tome in which he would take notes and make lists of names. In character he said, "These are people who I want to see dead." To me that was just a character quirk, so I'll let it be. But then when we encountered a villain again whose name he had noted, he got mad at me. He's supposed to be dead. That's how the Death Note works. I was a bit confused and for a moment thought I had forgotten some obscure D&D rule. So I asked him to explain what his character could do. He told me it was a homebrew magical item. If he writes a name down, they die, which I thought was overpowered and told him that. He got really angry, said the whole point of D&D was to play the characters he wants. Eventually he relented that part of his character, but it kept going. He would sometimes refuse to roll for a certain check. I'm smart enough that I would just succeed. So I had a one-on-one conversation with him about what he wanted to play and what was fair to the other players and myself as the DM. He seemed understanding, but the next game would fall back into his old habits, annoying other players as well. I removed him from the table after that. His reaction was to take out a prop Death Note and dramatically write out my name. Still alive. Watched Death Note since. Good show. Now understand why he also dramatically ate his potato chips. People who try to bring external characters etc. into games really irritate me. I just think it shows a lack of creativity, and a lot of them get upset when the mechanics don't support what they are trying to do and they aren't the OP main character. I ran a campaign set in the Industrial Revolution, but with a light steampunk twist. There were numerous things this one player complained about. Why do I need to buy a train ticket? I'm just going to sneak onto the train. Wait, why am I being thrown off the train? What do you mean I'm not allowed to build a peasant railgun? What do you mean I can't call in an orbital strike? Why does the King's Guard want me to put my bombs in a secure store while I meet the king? I won't do it. Why am I being taken to jail? What do you mean I can't sneak out of a secure leprosy ward? I was only bluffing that I was sick, and many more. The peasant railgun is the odd one out. My husband was the DM. One of my friends was that guy. I'll call him Guy for short here. Guy made ridiculously overpowered characters but also made each one chaotic unaligned. This meant when we met NPCs who gave us tasks, missions, advice, or even gifts, he would try to rob them. It was annoying as frick. It got to the point where every painting had to be directly painted onto the wall and every ungifted item was cursed because otherwise Guy would just rob everyone blind. We have another friend who has autism and a pretty obvious speech impediment. That guy would often interrupt him while he was attempting to deliver dialogue in character and then smirk at the rest of the group. He'd boast about it afterwards but we'd ignore him. He thought it would be cute to hit on my character. I wasn't pleased or comfortable. Because Guy insisted on it, I was told to roll resist. I failed. Husband was kind enough to say flatly she is mildly aroused and quickly move on. Guy tried to keep going but we all told him to knock it off. He wanted to be DM very badly. We let him once. Every NPC and enemy was overpowered and he took great delight in slaughtering us. Each round took forever because he had so many characters to get through, and each time he got to a player, one of Guy's enemies had a special trick to stop us doing a bunch of stuff. Me and another player got so bored we brought out books to read at the table. Rude, I know, but it really was unbearable. Guy's life wasn't very interesting outside of our games. He was an unemployed high school dropout. He didn't study, he didn't have any other hobbies except anime and video games, and he lived with his parents. This meant RPGs were pretty much Guy's only source of entertainment and the only thing giving him a sense of purpose. Our RPG group was bombarded with text messages 24/7 asking when we were due for our next session. He claimed it was his duty to remind us. There was a badass moment where he showed my husband a character he rolled which included a bunch of mods and stuff he found in obscure magazines and websites. My husband just looked at him and said, "Congratulations, you just won Shadowrun. How was it?" Finally, we told him we needed a long break from him. We informed Guy we no longer wanted to play with someone like him. Guy wasn't happy but seemed to take it well. There was so much crap he did that I've really only just skimmed the surface. He really was heck to play with. It sucked so bad. Eventually Guy encountered his own that guy and learned some humility. He still isn't exactly a joy to play with but he's much better than he used to be. Guy made me feel uncomfortable just now. One player kept bringing whichever flavor of the week girl he was banging to join our weekly game. Ultimately they would break up and we'd have wasted the better part of several sessions constantly introducing new PCS who would usually only be there for one session. His character was lured to his doom via falling damage by Harpy's song after some bad tactical decisions and horrendous saving throws. The Harpies were named after the characters that had left us due to the players' unchecked philandering ways, presumably cursed and transformed after they had vanished from the story. The guy bugged us every session to join for months, despite us telling him we were not taking more players. We eventually have someone leave, and for some reason decide he is going to take their place. He shows up to the first session without a character ready, takes forever getting it made, then does nothing once in game. The second session he just sits there on his laptop and seems to ignore the game. On my way back from the bathroom I see his screen and the dude is just watching pee. I immediately kicked him out and told him not to come back. Really, any player that has a chaotic evil protagonist, it just doesn't work well, and a lot of the time, it's not fun for the other players. Chaotic evil is a fun alignment, but it's not meant for a protagonist. We had a guy roll a critical failure while another guy rolled a nat 20. The nat 20 guy dodged a boulder and carved his name into the boulder while the other guy got smashed by that same boulder because his shield got caught in the tiny hallway he was in. He still blames the other player for essentially sending him a boulder with his name on it to kill him, lol. Now this is just plain funny. My friend ran a game that was completely ruined by someone. We were all new to D&D and were trying it out for the first time, so we didn't 100% know the rules and house ruled a couple of things just to make it easier and try to get the session to last less than 5 hours. This did not sit well with one of our group. He insisted on reading every single dang rule and making sure we were following it correct. If the DM gave us some info without a roll, he would perk up with "well actually." Then we had the infamous button room. There was a room with a pedestal and a button. We all entered and the door shut behind us. As it did that, the roof started to move down and the floor raised. We of course pushed the button and the trap reset and started over again. We look for exits thinking there's something hidden until I decide, frick it, it's a trick room. Let the roof close in. But this didn't seem to appease said player. He pressed the button like 5 times even after we all agreed to play it out. DM straight out ignores his button presses as we've spent about 20 minutes longer than we should have in this room. This dude single-handedly ruined D&D for me. We weren't the best role players, but we wanted to have fun. Seemed this guy's idea of fun was polar opposite to ours. Don't let one guy ruin D&D for you. Try and find another group to play with. You won't regret it. This was a few years ago. I had started up the Age of Worms campaign. I contacted all of my old friends from high school and we were gonna play like old times. Most of them I had kept in touch with. The only one I hadn't kept in touch with turned out to be the troublemaker. For the purpose of the story, we'll call him Frank. We start up the game. Game consists of 6 players including myself. We get through the first module without much trouble. Frank likes to talk shop and will talk everyone's ear off. No biggie, not like I am any better. He however started on the next session trying to push his weight around us like he did in high school. See, in our little clique of friends, the person who was usually the voice of the group was him. I thought nearly a decade of being out of high school and married that he would have changed into a sensible adult. I was wrong. Well, he started to verbally be a douchebag to one of our players. This lasted a few sessions until the last one. The last one he physically swung at the player. It was something over the game on how something was roleplayed and Frank got pee and swung. I stood up to tell him that I would not put up with that crap in my house. However, I didn't get the chance to. To this day I think this was so cool. The only person at the table that didn't go to school with us was James. James is 6 feet 4 inches of farm boy who worked nights as a bouncer. Before I could say a word, he was up and restrained him. He said something along the lines of, "How dare you do that crap as a guest in someone's house." He told him to leave before he got physically thrown out of the house. Frank left and we continued to play the campaign. He was the first person I've had to ask to leave, but sadly not the last. Good on James. He sounds like a really decent dude. I hope he stuck around on your life. My friend was constantly trying to kill the other characters for their loot and ended up being left behind. He died literally his next turn. Not D&D but a fate-based game. Character was based on a gambler with a minor ability to alter chance. The player was an absolute butthole. I'm all for open-ended storylines, but we had all decided to play a campaign our DM had spent a ton of time putting together. If he failed a throw, he'd start trying to undermine the other player's actions, so we all failed together. He'd leave the location or quest and refuse to participate because it fits my character, but insist on doing throws for all of his random bull's actions. We did an okay job finishing out the campaign, but he wasn't invited to the next one, which was awkward because all 5 of us lived in the same house. He didn't talk to us for 2 months and then moved to Texas from Michigan. Only one member of the party talks to him on occasion and apparently he just refuses to acknowledge that we existed. He just refuses to acknowledge that we existed. Seems like a win to me. My first game I ever ran was set in the universe of the true lives of the fabulous Killjoys comic book. I had a whole story planned that tied into the comics and would have been awesome. Sadly, one of the players who always had to be the center of attention wanted to name their character after one of the main characters in the comics who was dead in the books but alive in my campaign. She even went as far as to suggest her character could have been that person reincarnated. They refused to come up with another character and I ended up having to throw the story out the window and just wing it. God, I wish I'd put my foot down. Personally, the worst was the player who clearly didn't care for how I was running a game. Anytime I tried to narrate something, he would interrupt with, "Oh, my character's already gone. They're like a mile down the road," would talk over the top of the table and generally try to ruin the game for everyone because he wasn't having fun. As a DM, he was equally bad. Clearly considered all the players idiots and didn't even attempt to do any world building. Literally said you're in the village of Questakistan and that kind of thing. Generally impatient, rude and just an absolute shithead. Easy fix by simply never playing with him again. But that said, I have a special contempt in my heart for the very nice Ook, player of the lawful good cleric who, while the rest of the party robbed, lied, stole and murdered right in front of him, never opened his mouth except to say I cast healing. A guy I played with a couple of times decided to try to be funny all the time, make lame jokes and in general frick up everything for everyone else, while everyone else tried to stay true to the campaign and world. At some point we had to tell him to take it seriously or frick off. There is nothing wrong with a little humor, but this guy wasn't funny at all. All his jokes were lame and he just would not shut up. TBH, that would probably be me if I ever sat down to play D&D. Not a DM, but a campaign that I left last year had a chick who had to meticulously document every single thing that happened. She had a binder that she wrote it all out in, and it wasn't just quick notes, which would have been fine and possibly helpful. It was like she was trying to make a novel out of our campaign. Encounters took for freaking ever because we had to not only tell the DM what we were doing and what we rolled, but we had to then go back and tell it to her because she wasn't paying attention or was still writing what the last person did. A simple encounter that should have taken like 15 minutes at most would easily take an hour. She would also argue with everyone about what the best plan was. Giving each other advice every now and then and talking things through as a group before we act is fine. But it was essentially her way or a 45-minute conversation about why it needed to be her way. This was the first game she had ever played in, and she had zero grasp of strategy or the fact that it was supposed to be fun for everyone. She would tell people information that, in game, their character wasn't aware of and get mad when they didn't act on that information. It was exhausting. I joined up with the same group again for a new campaign and when specifically meet up on days she is not available. At that point just film it and take notes at home later, lol. That's ridiculous. Some Dragonborn I would DM for in my group kept trying to eat important NPCs. Well, after 3 sessions of having to be very creative to get the group going on quests and such, we met a kind old lady. This was the start of a new plague that was wiping out dragons, causing a problem for this town, with a benevolent dragon guardian. Well, guess who was a carrier of this deadly plague? I made him roll a constitution check. He rolled a 3, pretty much crippled immediately, died at the next combat because he refused to believe I would actually kill him. Then he made the exact same character for the next session, just changed the first letter of his name. Homeboy ate another person immediately, the mayor of this small village, Plague City. That was my last session with my group. That was 4 years ago. I don't really regret anything. The single worst player was my friend D. I'd had some fun playing alongside him in someone else's game, and when the DM moved away and left us without a game, I thought I'd be a bro and invite him into mine. I've known D for decades. I knew his faults. I don't know what reckless spirit of blind optimism possessed me. See, D is the most competitive person I know, but only about stupid things. You'll be hanging out with him and then suddenly he'll get agitated and start lobbing mild digs at you and you realize he's decided this thing you're doing is a contest and he's going to win if it kills him. He'd pick in character fights with other characters over trivial things, usually during a combat, and then the rest of the party would be fighting the enemy and also D's character. Or if he got bored, he'd simply attack the nearest NPC, friend or foe. On reflection, I should have stopped that cold the first or second time it happened, but I always let the consequences play out. D also believed the best defense was a good offense, so when I talked to him out of game he tried putting it on me. If I was a better GM I could keep him entertained and he wouldn't do these things. With no improvement in his behavior and other players threatening to walk over it, I just stopped inviting him to games. I had a friend of a friend who was obsessed with both V for Vendetta and Heath Ledger's Joker. All his characters were a combination of those two, a chaotic rogue with face paint and a mask on, who spoke in the like alliterative verbose with a Joker's lisp. I allowed it in Vampire the Masquerade. I begrudgingly allowed it in Cyberpunk. I had his character eaten by dire rats in D&D early on, because enough is enough. This guy just could not grasp how to make his rolls, despite the fact that we played for about a year, and each session lasted about 4 to 5 hours, sometimes longer. He just didn't understand which modifiers to use, despite us constantly explaining it to him. He also tried to steal the spotlight, attempting to do things he wasn't trained in, and that another player was quite proficient on. Well, one day we talked to him about it, trying to walk him through how the game worked for like the millionth time. He exploded at us and got super pissed off. Unfortunately we were playing at his house. I was the DM though. I said frick it, I'm done. I don't have to deal with this. I packed up my stuff, and we all left. The remainder of the group followed, and we picked up a couple days later. I had his character brutally killed off, and I blocked the guy on every social media I followed him on and deleted and blocked his phone number. Sometimes I still see him at work. I work in a grocery store, and I do what I can to avoid him. One of my players wanted to be chaotic evil. Fine, whatever. He was the boyfriend of one of my regulars, and she took it far more seriously than he did. In our first session, he killed multiple NPCs, set many things on fire, and tried to sexually assault another player's character. Our game, and their relationship, didn't last long after that. I swear to God bad players universally fail to understand that chaotic just means unlawful, not full-on chaos god mode. I've never had a worse player experience or played with any. Just the typical annoyances and somewhat stereotypes everyone deals with that can be bad or lame. Generally I only play with friends who can hash stuff out if it becomes problematic. But there are templates people can fit into. The person who always has to have their kinks and fetishes in real life placed into their character. The guy who always jokes and tries to be wacky and wild. Which derails every quest and roleplay scenario because you have to tell them don't because X, Y and Z will happen. The close cousin to the one above who watches and listens to too many comedy type role-playing podcasts or shows who think this campaign has to be like that. The one who always has to be the brooding lone wolf guy. For frick's sake Frank, just say you're coming and stop making 15 stealth checks to follow us hidden in the forest. The time waster, who when asks if he can do something and gets told no, tries for 10 minutes to get it to work but in a slightly different way. The overplanner. Honestly though this can be a lot of people. The human heartthrob. Every female is his lust ground. The couple who's out of game drama is in. The person who takes it way too seriously and gets pissy ruining the atmosphere sometimes for others. For frick's sake Frank, just say you're coming and stop making 15 stealth checks to follow us hidden in the forest. Holy crap, that character always fricking sucks. Yeah cool, just run over 15 minutes after every combat has ended. Prick. I had a guy who played as Ugandan Knuckles. I told him no at first but he bitched and moaned so much that it was easier to just let him. Needless to say the campaign was a disaster. He tried to take the spotlight at every moment, butting in whenever he could and fricking up carefully planned situations. I eventually started restricting him from doing certain things, which according to him was against the rules, and he would whinge and whinge throughout the game. By the end of the campaign he'd killed 3 quest important characters, gotten the party arrested and directly caused the death of our rogue, who was understandably angry about it. Near the end I brought in a higher level enemy that only targeted him. It killed him no problem and he had a beef fit about how I was being unfair. I lost my temper and pretty much forced him to leave. He hasn't been invited back since. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.